As we stand here on the tee, I want to talk a little bit about shaping the driver. I think it's very important for players to be able to control the flight of their ball, and sometimes that hole doesn't exactly fit our eye, so we need to be able to control the shape and the flight of the ball. Now, the one thing that I always hear from my pupils is, why does a draw tend to go further than a fade? And I want to show you, as you see the red tee attached to the club face here, let's talk just a minute about the dynamics of what happens to hit a fade versus a draw. When I'm going to hit a fade, I tend to open the club face, and as you can see, as I open the club face, look at the loft or the trajectory as it changes on the tee. You can see there's a nice square face. As I start to open the club face up, you see the red tee changing in elevation. Well, that affects the launch angle of the ball, and it also, the side spin that's created by an open club face creates more curvature and more lift on the golf ball. So when you see yourself setting up to hit a fade and you're going to open that club face slightly, which we'll talk about the technique here in just a minute, you see that it actually enhances or increases the loft of the golf club, which makes the ball go higher, spin more, and not roll as far when it hits the ground. Conversely, whenever I'm setting up to hit a draw is hit with the face somewhat closing at impact, and as you can see here, if this is a normal setup for the driver, if I close the face slightly, it only takes the slightest bit of adjustment of the club face to make a big difference, as you can see in the launch angle of that red tee coming out of the club face again. So again, if I'm hitting a draw, I'm going to close the face, which reduces the launch of the club. And that's one of the things that, if you've got to carry it, sometimes a 3-wood actually may be a better choice of clubs to hit the draw versus the fade, because if you're playing a low lofted driver like a 9.5 that I've got right here, and I close the face significantly, I'm reducing that loft 2, 3, 4 degrees, and I may not be able to get the amount of carry that I need out of the golf club. So again, let's make sure that we've got the right tool for the shot that we're trying to hit. And just because we're hitting a draw, you may want to hit the driver thinking it's going to give you more distance, but ultimately you might get just as much or more out of a 3-wood. Now, let's talk a little bit about how this path and swing is going to work when we set up to hit the driver. If I'm going to go ahead and try to hit a fade with the driver, the first thing that we'll do is, you can see the orange alignment rod is right down the center of our fairway there, down the target line. I set my club face on that line, and if I want to hit a shot that's going to go left to right, I'm going to position my body slightly left so I can start that ball slightly to the left. I'm going to open the club face somewhat, but very slightly. It only takes a small amount of openness of the club face to get that ball to curve left to right, and especially depending on wind conditions, etc. From there, as soon as I'm ready to hit the shot, I'm going to just very slightly move to the outside of my target line on the takeaway. As you can see, instead of a regular square swing going back on that line, I'm going to work slightly open with the face and work just slightly out and across that line. From here, that's going to change the path slightly. I'm going to work a little to the outside of the ball, almost from, say, a 530 to 1130 on the golf ball. If you were looking at the target line being 6 to 12, I'm going to work just slightly across that target line with my path. That's going to produce the side spin necessary to cause the ball to curve left to right. Now, as we talk about the closing of the face or the drawing of the golf ball, I'm going to set up on that same line. I'm going to position my body and feet a little bit right of target. I'm going to close the stance and the club face just ever so slightly. And as I approach the golf ball, I'm going to make sure I'm working from the inside of that ball so that I'm working just about 630 to 1230, just from the inside of that 6 to 12 target line that we see there. So if I'm trying to hit the draw, we're going to close the face a little. Remember, that lowers the trajectory of the club for you. So I don't want you to have too low a loft there when we're trying that. And then we're just going to very simply work from the inside of the golf ball and allow the club to go ahead and rotate and release through. Always remember, when you've got a tight driving hole, that's going to start the ball a little right of the target, just like the fade's going to start the ball a little left of target. So make sure you've got room off the tee for that to happen. So again, if we're square here, want to hit a slight fade, we're going to open very slightly. I'll move slightly to my right because that's going to allow the ball position to move up just a shade. And then from there, we'll have the club face slightly open and work just across that line. To hit the draw, little closed with the stance, close the club face slightly, work from the inside of the golf ball, get it to release. Once you learn to shape those shots, you're going to see a great deal of improvement in your confidence as well as your ability to drive a ball in play.